Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's candidate forum. We're very excited to welcome the candidates and get their views of a variety of topics. First, let me explain tonight's format. This is a forum and not a debate, so candidates will not be engaging one another, but they will be answering questions developed by our partners. In addition, we have made room for one question from the audience for each of the vacancies, so we need you to put your questions in the chat, and I'll select one audience-submitted question to ask each candidate. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to introduce themselves, and then we will get into the questions. We will start with our round robin segment, where all candidates will answer with a yes or no or one-word answer, and then we will move to our job-specific categories, where each candidate will answer questions specific for the position they are vying for. Each candidate will have up to 2 minutes to respond, and we will conclude with a 1-minute close by all of the candidates. First, we want to thank all the organizations that came together to make this forum possible. Power Coalition for Equity and Justice, the Justice Alliance, Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, Nu Gamma Omega Chapter, Louisiana Organization of Refugees and Immigrants, Baton Rouge Sigma Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, the YWCA of Greater Baton Rouge, Moms Demand Action, Preach, Pumps to the Polls, Justice and Accountability Center of Louisiana, East Baton Rouge Parish Prison Reform Coalition, Baton Rouge Immigrant Rights Coalition, Abella La Femme, First Housing Alliance, Decarcerate Louisiana, Step Up Louisiana, Capital Area Reentry Coalition, Vulnerable Communities, and People Initiative. All of these organizations are dedicated to both voter engagement, education, and participation. Tonight's forum will highlight 3 positions on the March 26th ballot in East Baton Rouge Parish: State Representative for District 101, 19th JDC Judge, and East Baton Rouge Parish Metro Council Representative for District 5. For those needing information on the upcoming election, here are the important dates. And for more information, visit govote.com, that's GEAUX vote.com. And the important dates are going to be: the deadline to request absentee ballots is March 22nd. The deadline to return your absentee ballot is March 25th at 4:30 p.m. Early voting is going to be from March 12th to March 19th, including the Sunday. And the actual election day is March 26th. So let's get started and introduce our candidates. We will begin with the candidates for the position of State Representative, and we are welcoming Dawn Collins, Vanessa Caston-LaFleur. We also want to introduce and welcome the candidates for the 19th JDC Judgeship. We have Brad Myers and Jennifer Araka. And we will also like to welcome our candidates for the East Baton Rouge Parish Metro Council District 5. We have Daniel Bengal, Daryl Hurst, and Dadrius Landis. And Dadrius, if I pronounce your last name wrong, I do apologize. Please correct me when you come up. So we are going to start with 2-minute introductions for every candidate to introduce themselves to the audience. I'll start a timer for 2 minutes, but we wanted to start out for you to be able to give a general introduction to the attendees that we have today. And we'll beginning with Dawn Collins. We'll then have Vanessa Caston-LaFleur, Brad Myers, Jennifer Araka, Daniel Bengal, Daryl Hurst, and Dadrius Landis. So starting with Dawn Collins, please introduce yourself.
Hey, can you hear me? I have background music.
Yeah, I'll see if we can get the background music.
Okay, no, I want to make sure I was good. It's okay.
There we go.
Right. Thank you. All right. Well, so good evening, everyone. I'm excited about our this is our first forum in this election. Excited about this special election because long before I've been on the school board since 2016. But long before I've been on the school board fighting for public education, I've been a community advocate fighting on issues like police brutality, against teachers being attacked at the state capitol in terms of tenure and pay, against attacks on school boards. I fought hard for health care for all people, including Medicaid expansion at a time when the state didn't want to provide health care for everyone. I have fought against the nursing home industry when they prefer that folks have to be stuck in a nursing home. And so I believe that people should be able to live independently with proper supports, and not just the elderly and the disabled, but all people. And so I take that to segue the point loosely. Neighborhoods and communities, especially in District 101, are experiencing a lot of disinvestment. And so one of the issues of passion for me is to work on leveraging the resources and relationships that I have and that I will gain to bring community-centered economic development to the area. Additionally, what I want to see happen is, of course, a decrease in mass incarceration. Of course, work on municipalities being able to raise the pay wage. Right now, the state has restricted municipalities from being able to increase the wages on a local level, which I think is a huge disgrace. Is that the final time or is that a warning time?
That's your 2 minutes.
All right. Okay. Ballot number 3, Dawn Collins.
Thank you so much. Next, we would like Vanessa Caston LaFleur to introduce themselves. And Ms. LaFleur, you're on mute, so please unmute.
There we go. Thank you so much. And thank you for this opportunity to meet the voters in District 101. I am a longtime resident of District 101. I graduated from Baton Rouge Magnet High School, Southern University, and Southern University Law Center. I'm a wife, mother, and community servant. This is my first time running for an elective office, but it is not my first time serving the residents of District 101. My legal experience in numerous roles can benefit the legislature and District 101. My roles have included Director of Tax Policy Services for the Louisiana Department of Revenue, the Audit Protest Bureau Chief for the Louisiana Department of Revenue, and I've served as General Counsel for the Louisiana Tax Commission and the Director of the Legal Division for the Louisiana Public Service Commission. I give you all that information because those agencies, I feel, are the most taxpayer, voter-centric agencies. Everything that you touch has to run through those specific agencies. I've also served as a member of the Louisiana State Board of Ethics. I've been involved in community service. I've led on boards and received accommodations for that leadership and made sure that as I led, that the people that were to be affected by policies knew that, and I was able to work with them. Honestly, I'm running to get results for children, young adults, and families in District 101. I'm qualified, ready, and I believe that I will bring a strong addition to the State House of Representatives on behalf of District 101. Safer communities, investment in our children, and economic opportunities are the things that I want to bring to District 101. Vanessa Caston LaFleur, number 5 on your ballot, number 1 in your heart. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we would like to welcome Brad Meyer to introduce themselves.
Good evening. Thanks for the opportunity to talk with you about my candidacy for the 19th Judicial District Court. I think that every lawyer and citizen who appears before a judge wants to know that the judge has the right combination of legal experience and life experience that makes them, allows them to make the hard decisions that judges often have to make. I believe that the depth and breadth of my legal experience along with my life experiences make me uniquely qualified to seek the privilege of serving the community as a 19th Judicial District Court judge. Let me first talk about a little bit about my personal background. I've been married for 37 years to Judy Atkinson. We have raised 2 children here in Baton Rouge who have both, I think, become successful adults in their chosen careers. Courtney is an assistant district attorney in East Baton Rouge Parish, and Chase is a small business owner in Bozeman, Montana, in the firearms and outdoor industry. On a professional level, I have spent my entire career of over 30 years in the courtroom learning how to try cases and how not to try cases. I started my career working for two judges, Judge Doug Morrow and Judge Mike Ponder, as their law clerks. When I graduated from law school, I was hired immediately by the U.S. Attorney here in Baton Rouge to serve as an assistant U.S. Attorney, where I served for 5 years as the lead prosecutor for the Organized Crime Drug Enforcement Task Force, prosecuting serious drug and political corruption cases, both in the Middle District of Louisiana and Baton Rouge, as well as in the Eastern District of Louisiana and New Orleans, and the Western District of Louisiana and Lafayette as a special assistant U.S. Attorney. After serving for 5 years in that capacity, I moved to King Miller, where
you can wrap up. That's the end of
I've
10
been in
minutes.
private practice for over 30 years, trying every kind of case that the court, that a judge in the 19th Judicial District Court would hear. And I believe I'm uniquely qualified to serve as a judge.
Thank you very much for that introduction. Next, we will welcome to hear from Jennifer Araka.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for allowing me to be here tonight. I really appreciate the invitation to speak to you all. I started working in law firms right out of high school. I worked as a legal secretary, then a paralegal, then as a law clerk, and then as a lawyer. My primary practice prior to being a lawyer was civil defense, a lot of different civil cases. Then later, as a lawyer, I started doing criminal defense work, both in the private arena and for the public defender's office. I eventually went to the public defender's office, where I handled hundreds of cases and tried trials in front of a judge and in front of a jury, so both bench and jury trials. After that, I tried my hand as being a prosecutor in city court, where I worked in both the contracts division and as the lead prosecutor in Kelly Temple's courtroom. While I was practicing as a private attorney in criminal defense courtrooms, I worked in several different courtrooms throughout the 19th JDC and several other parishes throughout Louisiana. I think that I'm uniquely qualified. I think that I have the experience, although it is both civil and criminal, much like this seat will be, both civil and criminal. So I'm asking for your consideration, and I would appreciate your vote. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next, we will welcome Daniel Bengal to introduce himself.
Good afternoon, good evening. Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm Daniel Bengal. I am a graduate of Northwest State University and Southern University in college, and a recent graduate of Southern University Law Center. I'm also a community advocate, also a family man. I believe that education is the foundation of everything. I grew up here in District 5 my entire life. I've been living in the Glen Oaks community since I was born, attending Pat's daycare as a child. I understand the needs of this community. I understand that in tough times, you need leadership who understand tough times, who's been through it. I've been an advocate on every level, from national to local. I've been in politics in terms of campaign strategy, campaign management, responsible for many of the judicial judges now who have gotten elected. So I've been involved. I've been involved in terms of mentoring the youth into our high schools. I started an organization called Louisiana Education Advancement Project, where I've been able to oversee over 200 children, over 50% of them on the A and B honor roll. I've spoken at many graduations in the parish. I've also been on the front lines when it came to police shootings. I was there on Airline Highway watching, making sure our children wasn't hurt. I've been in the trenches, so I understand. I also believe that it takes an educated individual to understand the role of a council position. I don't think that the rhetoric in our community has been talking for so long. I think it's time for people who actually have the ideas and have the proven track record to get things done. I've been there with Senator Regina Barrow, getting $3 million approved through legislation to get children in the foster care system additional time to be able to go to school. I've been speaking at the council meetings on different various issues. I've been at the school board speaking about changing Lee High School name and the various issues. So I've been through every level of government. I'm trying to promote the best District 5 it can be.
Thank you, Mr. Bengal. Next, we would like to welcome Daryl Hurst to introduce themselves.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Daryl Hurst. I am the appointed council person as of January 12th. I am a family man, a community man, a businessman, but most of all, a man of faith. I have a lovely wife, 2 kids. I am the parking lot director at my church, saving souls outside of the doors as well. I own an AT&T franchise that was #2 in the Southeast U.S., #1 in Louisiana for small to medium-sized businesses. So I truly understand businesses, how to balance a budget, and how to impact people's organizations to positively affect their bottom line. But most of all, I'm a community man. I have been the executive director of Elite Sports, a nonprofit that focuses on sports education and community service. And we service anywhere from 1,500 to 4,000 kids in a calendar year, where we use sports as a hook to get access to the kids, but we impart life skills, which is, as of recent, abstinence, communication and presentation skills, literacy, etiquette, and financial literacy. And working with these kids through the years, I've understood the gaps in the community from a business perspective, as well as from a faith perspective. I understand how to close them. I've been in office for right at about 50 days, and I did not sit on my thumbs. What I did was started to impact the community from day one. Started a blight program that's going to tear down as many houses as the law will allow us to do so, clean lots, remove cars. We formed neighborhood associations for both Delmont Village and the Glen Oaks area so that we can eventually evolve into a crime prevention district. These are the things that I could have waited until after the race to do, but I've been in a position to serve. And I hope that my first 50 days have been a ray of sunshine for what the rest of the 12 years that I'll be in office will look like. Thank you for your time. I look forward to responding today.
Thank you, Mr. Hurst. And rounding us out, we have Dadrius Lannis.
Yes, sir. Thank you. And it's Darius Lannis, by the way. It's no problem, though.
Thank you.
How you all doing tonight? I'm sorry. That's okay. How you all doing tonight? My name is Darius Lannis. I am currently your East Baton Rouge Parish School Board member for District 2, which encompasses about 80% of the District 5 community. I am also the executive director for the 100 Black Men of Metro Baton Rouge. So literally my job every single day, working on behalf of our students, more specifically our young African-American Black men, and ensuring that we not only protect our lives, but also trying to preserve life inside of our neighborhood. As it stands right now, we know that crime is a major issue. When you go anywhere inside of our community, more specifically inside of District 5, and you talk to the people, such as citizens that live inside of the North Forest Heights Association, who say that when they walk outside of their house, they can see bullet holes inside of their cars, inside of their houses. That's a problem. And that's the reason why I'm wasting no time. And I'm the only candidate that's currently running for this seat that actually has a crime prevention plan that starts on day one. And it doesn't cost our community any dollar. Literally, it is about prioritizing what is best for our community and also knowing what the needs of our community are by talking to the citizens on a regular basis. But I'm looking forward to having some meaningful conversations tonight and really dialoguing about what are the plans to move District 5 forward rather than just using word and lip service.
Thank you, Darius. We will now begin our rapid round questions, and a reminder to all of our candidates that these questions require either 1 or 2 word answers. So for one of these positions, the last incumbent in the position chose to run for another office, or they accepted another opportunity prior to completion of their term. I'm going to start with Mr. Daniel Bengal, and the question, I'll start with you and then I'll go through everybody, is will you commit to complete your term if you are elected?
Yes.
Don Collins, will you commit to complete your term if elected?
Absolutely.
Daryl Hurst?
Not only this term, but multiple terms.
Thank you. Darius Lannis?
Yes, sir. If that is what the citizens of District 5 want, I would absolutely stay there so that I finish the term.
Thank you. Vanessa Casson LaFleur?
Yes.
And Brad Myers?
Yes.
And Jen Araka?
Yes.
Thank you, everyone. We will now have another quick short question, and I'll start with, again, same order, Mr. Daniel Bengal. Can you name your favorite restaurant in your district?
My favorite restaurant is Cafe Jean Pierre.
Thank you. And Don Collins, your favorite restaurant?
Cafe John Pierre and Villa Del Mar are tied.
Okay. Don Collins? Oh, sorry, Daryl Hurst?
A lot of friends at a restaurant too is gonna make me get in trouble today, but it's probably Odom's. Odom's Kitchen.
Okay. And Darius?
I would have to go with Lily's Kitchen, right on Silverleaf Avenue, baby.
All right. Vanessa casting the floor?
Certainly, Billie Jean's, best soul food out there.
All right. Brad Myers?
Of course, there are a lot of good restaurants, but probably Mestizos, Louisiana Mexican cuisine, where we've eaten every Saturday night for the last 25 years.
Thank you very much. And Jen Rocker?
I feel like you're trying to get me in trouble, but I'm going to go ahead and say pecan crusted brisket from Zealand Street Cafe.
Thank you, everybody. We're not trying to get anybody in trouble. We just like to hear what folks like to eat in the district. So now I'm going to start with Mr. Hurst. This question is, will you commit to removing all your campaign signage within 30 days of the election?
I definitely will. I don't want to add to the blight in the community. So once the campaign is over, that is definitely my commitment.
Thank you. Darius, Lannis?
Absolutely. I look forward to having it down within 72 hours.
Thank you. Vanessa casting the floor?
Absolutely. I've got the family on that one.
Brad Myers?
Yes.
Jen Rocca?
Much like last time, we had them down within 48 hours.
Thank you. Daniel Bengal?
Yes.
I'm sorry, Daniel, I didn't hear the response. Could you check your
Yes,
mute?
I will.
Okay, thank you. And Don Collins?
Yes, I always do.
Thank you, thank you. So now we're going to start with Darius Lannis. This question is, in honor of Women's History Month, could you please name the woman that most influenced you to commit to public service?
It's hard. It's really a tie between my mother and also my aunt. Both two women of extraordinary circumstances who just showed me what the meaning of hard work is. My aunt worked in the same job for over 30 years. My mom been in the same industry and service for over 30 years, for as long as I've been alive, and just watching them strive every single day, never complaining, always going to work on time, and showing up and putting smiles on people's faces. I would definitely say my aunt and my mom for sure.
Thank you, Darius. Vanessa casting the floor?
My mother, primarily because she raised 3 children on her own. And I say on your own, but the village helped her raise those 3 children. And if I say so myself, we have done well in life. We've made her proud. It's certainly my mother. If I can just bring her a sense of she did it all on purpose, and a sense of pride about her children and the sacrifices that she made, that's my goal in life. It's just to say, thank you, Mom. Thank you for making me who I am. And thank you for accepting the role as my mother and taking it serious.
Thank you. Brad Myers?
Yeah, actually, there are 2 women. Of course, my mother, first off, she raised 9 children with my father, who was a school teacher, and taught us all how to work hard without complaining and accepting responsibility for your actions. And of course, my wife, who has been with me for 37 years and has supported me in all of my legal endeavors, and has helped and is mainly successful for our 2 successful children that we've raised.
Thank you. Jen Rocca?
I have to say my mother. My dad got sick whenever I was 5 years old, and she worked 2 and 3 jobs throughout my entire life. She was a cafeteria worker in the day. She cleaned people's houses at night, and she would do whatever she could do to find work on the weekends. She took care of us. She taught us a wonderful work ethic, and she made sure that we never did without. So she's been a huge inspiration to me.
Thank you. Danielle Bengal.
Yeah, my mom is the most influential person in my life. Growing up as a single parent mother, she had 3 children. She showed us the value of hard work. I can never repay back for all the sacrifices she made for me. My first year of college, she had to borrow money for me to be able to finish school. And so my mom for sure is the most influential person. And because of her, I have successful children. No knock on their mother. Their mothers are great too, but my mom has been involved with me my entire life, and I'm grateful because of her. I am who I am today.
Thank you. Don Collins.
Yes, I had to move my fur baby out of the way to answer the question. I'm sorry. So, of all the amazing women on my shirt, on my campaign shirt, I would have to say that Ella Baker is a close second to my mother, because Ella she fought fiercely in the civil rights movement, but she loved fiercely too. And a lot of times people think of love and think it's wishy-washy and makes you soft, but you need love, especially in politics. And love is about accountability too. So I'm gonna have to roll with Ella Baker.
Thank you. And Daryl Hurst.
My mom for sure. So I don't think teachers get paid enough now. They definitely didn't get paid enough when I was younger. And being offered a number of jobs that would remove her from education, she felt that it was her calling to stay in the classroom and impact kids. As a matter of fact, at 71 years old, she went back to work about 2 weeks ago because EPR is struggling and they needed assistance in the classroom. So at 71 years old, she's still a woman of service, and she's impacted my life. So now that I'm serving and doing the same thing.
Thank you. We are going to start this next question with Vanessa casting the floor. And just a quick reminder, we are doing a quick rapid fire instead of just 1 or 2 word answers if you can. At what age did you first vote?
18.
Thank you. Brad Myers?
Whatever the year was when I was able to vote, whether it was 18 or 21, I don't remember when it was, but the first time I had an opportunity to vote, I did.
Thank you. Jen Araka?
The very first time I could, I did.
Thank you. Danielle Bengal?
I think I was 19 or 20 when I first voted.
Thank you. Don Collins?
18.
Thank you. Daryl Hurst?
18.
Thank you. And Darius Lannis?
18, and I want to probably say I got to cast it for President Barack Obama.
Thank you. We are going to start this next quick round with Brad Myers. Can you name your favorite book?
I just finished reading one, The Judge's List by John Grisham. It's one of my favorites so far.
Thanks. I think that's a new one. I think that just came out.
It is.
Yeah.
Just came out this year.
Thank you. Jen Araka?
There are too many to choose from, but my most recent favorite is Where the Crawdads Sing.
All right. Thank you. Danielle Bengal?
Charlotte's Web.
Thank you. Don Collins?
The Originals by Adam Grant is a close second to the Bible.
Thank you. Daryl Hurst?
I gotta go with Dawn with the Bible as the number 1, but Sun Tzu, The Art of War is my number 2.
Thank you. Darius Lannis?
I get to read quite a few books, but I would say my favorite book that I'm reading right now is one that my pastor gave me, and it's called The Man That God Uses by Henry and Tom Blackaby.
Thank you. And Vanessa casting the floor?
Yeah, so of course the Bible is the answer, right? Because that's the one book that I actually read every single day. But like my most recent favorite book is by Tiffany Cross, and I read it I think last summer. Say It Louder.
Thank you. This next quick rapid question. We're going to start with Jen Araka. East Baton Rouge Parish is increasingly more diverse, and this includes individuals with language and disability challenges. Do you speak any languages other than English and including American Sign Language?
It's funny that you asked that. Some fellow council members and I were just discussing taking Spanish classes at Baton Rouge Community College together. But I don't speak Spanish fluently. However, I've taken classes in Spanish since I was in elementary school. And then whenever I lived in Orlando, I took 3 at Valencia Community College. And I really would love to speak fluently. However, I have to keep my practice up, and it's been challenging to learn a whole new language.
Thank you. Daniel Bengal.
Again, I took Spanish and French, so I know some words in Spanish and French. I don't speak fluently either one, but I can keep up with those who know basic Spanish and French. But that's about it when it comes to foreign language. I basically took classes that were required in college and high school, and that's about as far as I went with foreign language.
Thank you very much. Don Collins.
Muy poquito español, and I got to practice when I did study abroad in Teotihuacan as an undergrad and architecture student. So,
Thank you very much. Daryl Hurst.
Very limited Spanish, very limited French. I do travel abroad a lot, so I get to engage in conversation, but not on a day-to-day, so it gets extremely limited. But I do have minor French and Spanish.
Thank you. Darius Lannis.
I don't speak any language fluently besides English. However, I have of Mardi Gras. That's in a day. Good time.
Thank you very much. Vanessa Casson-LaFleur.
Limited on both Spanish and French, but I have 2 children that took both of those languages, so they travel with me. And even when I'm canvassing, they're with me. So if I get kind of hung up, I ask them to do a little translation for me.
Thank you. And Brad Myers.
I only speak English, but I took Latin in high school and in college, so I can hold my own with anybody who can speak Latin.
Okay, thank you. Thank you everyone for that rapid round. We're now going to transition to our position-specific questions. I want to remind the audience that this is your opportunity to put a question in the chat box that we may be able to select and ask one of the candidates. We will start with the candidates for state representative, so that includes Dawn Collins and Vanessa Casson-LaFleur. Remember, candidates, you will have up to 2 minutes to respond, and just like before, you'll hear the timer kind of go off in the background, and that'll be your cue to wrap up your response. So we're going to start with Dawn Collins. What is your vision for making District 101 a safe, welcoming place for all? And please include your top 3 priorities for District 101 that you believe you have the power to impact in your first year serving in the legislature.
I fell off. Repeat the question.
Don, no worries. I'll repeat the question. What is your vision for making District 101 a safe, welcoming place for all? And please include your top 3 priorities for District 101 that you believe you have the power to impact in your first year serving in the legislature.
So my top 3 priorities that I feel I can impact are community-centered economic development, education, and crime. Crime, including a community-centered approach to criminal justice reform. And I'm sorry, I got distracted because I dropped off. Can you repeat the other part of the question?
Yes, the other part is just sharing your vision for making District 101 a safe, welcoming place for everyone.
All right, and so then my vision is, as I mentioned earlier, I really want to address the disinvestment in the area. Our area is 1 generation removed from white flight, so a generation ago. It was a predominantly white area, and which is typical as you look at different areas like Astroma, Glen Oaks, etc. What I don't want to see is that the disinvestment continues and we become a 70805 or 70802 in terms of the crime statistics, though we are heading in that direction. And so what I want to do is some asset mapping in the area so that we can first recognize the assets that we do have, and begin to build on and invest on the assets that we have here in District 101 and build a community hub of sorts, similar to maybe the mid-city area, etc. We can also capitalize on the industrial corridor that we have. Amazon is building and almost complete. They'll finish in the fall where the old Cortana Mall was. And so that is gonna create some natural economic development. But if we don't want our neighborhoods to get pushed out, and if we don't want our community to be shaped by others, then we have to organize amongst ourselves. And so I come from my advocacy background. I'm very grassroots. And so I'm all about organizing the businesses in the area and leveraging the resources and relationships on the state rep level.
Thank you very much. Ms. Vanessa casting the floor, same question. What's your vision for making District 101 a safe, welcoming place for all? And please include your top 3 priorities for District 101 that you believe you have the power to impact in your first year serving in the legislature.
Thank you for the question. Let me address the second part of that question first, and to say this. I wanted to know what those top 3 priorities was, not for me, but for the voters in District 101. So I commissioned a poll. And let me tell you what they said to me, and this is the ranking, and that then gives me my marching orders on what I need to do when I am their next state representative. First, crime, safer communities. My vision for that is to have sort of a collaborative effort with the stakeholders. Who are the stakeholders? It's you, it's me, it's the police officers, it's the mayor, it's even those that are serving in the House, because at some point we've got to realize that this crime issue is both local, regional, and national. So we need to work together to solve that problem. Education, making sure that we are investing in the education of our children. Education is liberating. Literacy is liberating. If we want our children to grow and we want our communities to grow and to be successful, we've got to invest in education. Lastly, economic development. I think you can look at District 101. There is so much room for growth. We've just got to sit in the room and be able to talk to each other, be able to sort of have some consensus building of what that growth plan should look like. And we do that by talking to the voters, talking to those that have skin in the game for District 101. So those are the top 3 priorities as defined by the residents of District 101. And I'm committed to being their voice. So those would be the things that I would push because that's what they want. Crime, education, and economic development for the area. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Casson the floor. I'm going to stay with you for this next question. Redistricting maps have been approved by the legislature and are currently awaiting the governor's decision. Please share your thoughts on what you believe the governor should do regarding the maps that were approved.
Sure, great question. If I were governor for a day, I certainly would not approve those maps. And I say that because those maps do not represent what the numbers represented in the census. Numbers don't lie, and those maps should represent the numbers. They don't. I look at the numbers, since we're talking about numbers. Let's talk about the number of state representatives that we had in the construction area, and now that we have now. Guess what? It's less, because we're not being true to what the census says we are to do, which is draw these districts based upon the numbers that come out of the census. So if I were governor for a day, I certainly would veto it, let it go to court, and let us have judicial, I don't want to call it interference, but have the courts decide, since we couldn't do so at the legislative stage.
Thank you, Ms. Casson the floor. Ms. Collins, same question. Redistricting maps have been approved by the legislature and are currently awaiting the governor's decision. Please share your thoughts on what you believe the governor should do regarding the maps that were approved.
He should veto the maps. In fact, I was there with the NAACP, Black Votes Matter, etc., at the governor's mansion. showing myself to be friendly, but holding him accountable as well, reminding him that it is the Black vote that got him into the office and that we have his back should he do the right thing, and make sure we can continue to help support his work and the work of any other governors, and in the work of any other governors behind him who would work towards our best interests. But we can't, but he's got to step up. And I say that with love. And that is also how I've been operating on the school board redistricting process. We need fair representation. East Baton Rouge Parish is now majority Black. We should have a fair excuse me for being redundant. We should have fair representation in the sense of we have 9 now. We should have 5 because we are the majority. Even more so that folks can have even fairer representation and not have to choose based on money and whether or not somebody is highly funded by special interest groups. We should have more districts, for example, in the school board than the 9, because it decreases the size of the outreach that the candidate has to do, and they can put their tennis shoes on like both myself and my opponent are doing in this race. And so that's what I believe the governor should veto. I've been very open about that at his mansion on social media, and it's consistent with my position with the redistricting process on the school board.
Thank you, Ms. Collins. I'm going to stick with you for this next question. There appears to be conversations about rolling back the historical criminal justice reforms of just a few years ago. What is your vision as it relates to reforming the criminal legal system?
So my vision of reforming the criminal legal system deals with definitely no rollbacks. The big push from both the liberals and the conservative at one point was, hey, we have too many people in jail. We have increased our numbers from tenfold at least since 1970 in terms of how we are the most incarcerated nation, and Louisiana at one time was the most incarcerated state. And so for us to roll back the clock would be absolutely ridiculous. I'm also against the death penalty because there are too many innocent people in jail and on death row. I am against the conversation around juvenile offenders and parents being held accountable for juveniles. I mean, parents should definitely be held accountable for their children, but children are children, whether we like it or not. And even the best of parents, sometimes a child might do what they want. And I'm also against, as my last point, children being in jail with adults. It's, to me, cruel and unusual punishment. It's disgusting. It inhibits a certain form of evil. Because why would you even consider that in the first place? And one last thing, solitary confinement is a huge no.
Thank you, Ms. Collins. Ms. Caston, the floor, same question. There have been talks about rolling back significant historical criminal justice reform has been passed in the last few years. What is your vision as it relates to reforming the criminal legal system?
So let's go back to the question of whether or not I'm in favor of rolling back reform. That is a no. I'm happy that we have the reform, but there's more work to be done as it relates to the criminal justice system and reform. And I'm here to do that work and do it alongside my friends, who I'm happy to say did most of the work in the heavy toting in the Legislative Black Caucus. We must continue to demand accountability at all levels. And rolling back reform does not give us accountability. It does not give us the transparency that we need to see in our criminal justice system. So yeah, that's a big no on whether or not I'm in favor of rolling it back. I'm in favor of pushing the needle toward having the Constitution stand for what it's supposed to stand for. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to stay with you for this next question. Many dollars are being dedicated to infrastructure, but little, if any, is moving towards comprehensive mass transit or green energy. Do you agree with the current priorities? And if not, what is your vision as it relates to mass transit and or green energy?
Certainly, I am in favor of mass transit and green energy. I would love to live in a city where I didn't necessarily need a vehicle, that I could get to where I need to get without a vehicle, because that is good on the environment. It's good on my pocket with gas prices the way they are today. But certainly that the priority has to include mass transit. How can we be a great city, a great state, with not prioritizing mass transit for our citizens? It gets us to work, it gets us to school. It's needed. It should be one of those things that we know is a priority, and we make it a priority. I'm certainly in favor of mass public transit and a clean environment. I hope to have this earth around for a long time, so that I can visit and have fun on this earth with my grandchildren when the time is appropriate for that.
Thank you. Ms. Collins, same question. Many dollars are being dedicated to infrastructure, but little, if any, is moving towards comprehensive mass transit or green energy. Do you agree with the current priorities? And if not, what is your vision as it relates to mass transit and or green energy?
So no, I don't agree with the current priorities. I do agree that climate is hugely important. In fact, in 2011, I was one of many national trainers in Washington, D.C. for Power Shift. It was a climate action training to train college students and others how to organize around the issue. So it's a hugely important issue to me, especially with us in Louisiana and hurricanes and how coastlines have been impacted. In terms of transit, I'm a huge proponent of mixed mode transit systems, which include thinking of everything from the pedestrian to the bike rider to buses, as Ms. LaFleur mentioned, as well as light rail. I am for the light rail that has been proposed between New Orleans and Baton Rouge.
Thank you. Ms. Collins, we're going to have this last question start with you. What is your plan to engage your constituents on the complicated issues being decided in the upcoming session?
So it has been my habit and will continue to be it has been my practice and will continue to be my practice to hold town halls in person now that we've gotten past many waves of COVID. So I bring in diverse stakeholders, schools, churches, businesses, etc. I will continue to do virtual roundtables, which catches people whether they have transportation issues or not. I invite experts on my panels. I touch on the issues that sometimes people are scared to discuss, or they love to discuss it but don't know a lot about it. And so those are, the in-person town halls, as well as the virtual roundtables, because again, transportation is not an issue on those, and they're recorded, and so people can watch it when they're up in the middle of the night snacking.
Thank you, Ms. Collins. And before I bring in Ms. Casting the floor, I do want to remind the audience that if you have any questions for Ms. Collins or Ms. Casting the floor, please put it in the chat box and we'll try to get it to them. So Ms. Casting the floor, same question. What is your plan to engage your constituents on the complicated issues being decided in the upcoming session?
Thank you for that question. And so let me start by saying this. I've made one commitment, and it's a commitment that when I'm knocking on doors, I remind the voters that I will never forget who I work for. So that means that I have to take into account what voters want to see at the state representative level. And I can only do that by having town hall meetings with them, engaging in and attending their homeowners association meetings. I'm a writer, so writing some op-eds to sort of, spur some debate and some conversation. I believe in newsletters. Placing something in the mail and getting people to sit and read it, I think it's important, because you know what I say, literacy is what? Liberating. Email is also good. Social media will be used as a platform as well. My goal will be to make sure that our voters are fully educated on what is happening, so that when we dialogue, they can give me very good responses back and great direction on what they want to see at the state capitol.
Thank you, Ms. Casting the floor. And we do have some questions from the audience, and we're going to show one of those questions on the screen, and then I'll read it to you as it comes in. So the question that we have from Renee, is Louisiana prisons are overcrowded. Who is fixing that? And Ms. Casting the floor, since you wrapped up the last question, I'll start with you and then I'll pivot to Ms. Collins. So who's fixing our overcrowded prisons in Louisiana?
That's a good question. I don't know that it is a priority. So the question is who's fixing it, who should be fixing it, and it should be fixed now sort of response. We've got, our elected officials, of course, both at the state and the local level that can engage. We've got the Division of Corrections that can do that as well. The governor's office has some responsibility. I think that is one of those sort of village projects with every stakeholder that is involved in the process should be trying to fix the overcrowding issue.
Thank you. Ms. Collins, please provide your perspective. Louisiana prisons are overcrowded. Who is fixing that?
Well, obviously nobody. Now, what should we be doing so they won't be overcrowded? A lot of the issue is money. We not adequately funding the public defender's office. Their caseloads are ridiculous. Then on the other side of the money, a lot of the problem is the money bail system, which we should abolish, because some people are just sitting in jails because they don't have money. On both issues, on bail and on good representation. Not to say that all public defenders are not bad. Many public defenders are there for passion, just like educators and teachers. But of course, the more money you have, the higher quality that you can afford. And so that's the issue. And I think that the public defender's office ought to at least be afforded the same dollars as the prosecutor's office and the DA's offices. And so that's my answer.
Thank you, Ms. Collins. Thank you, Ms. LaFleur. We do have, looks like another question coming in. And I think this will be our last question for you two. So we'll start with Ms. Collins. Where do our state representative candidates stand on pay equity and increasing minimum wage? So Ms. Collins, we'll start with you.
Okay, so I'm definitely huge on both. I've worked at the Capitol and advocated at the Capitol on both issues in the House and Senate committees and on the House and Senate floors, side by side with women allies of all races. The pay equity issue is a bigger problem for Black women than white women, but it's a problem for us all. Increasing the minimum, I just been tongue-tied all night, y'all. Increasing the minimum wage, of course, as I mentioned in some of my opening remarks, I am for, I have rallied and petitioned with organizers with the Fight for 15. I've gone and helped workers strike Walmart because they refused to increase. Because they refuse to increase their wages. And as a legislator, one thing I can do is advocate and push legislation for the state to loosen the restrictions they insist on having on municipalities' ability to increase their minimum wage.
Thank you, Ms. Collins. Ms. Casting the floor, same question. Where do you stand on pay equity and increasing minimum wage?
Thank you. I stand in favor of pay equity and increasing the minimum wage. I know one thing that the pandemic has taught us is that it can be done. Because now companies are paying $10 to $15. They're paying that increased minimum wage to be competitive, to get people in their doors to work for them. So it can be done and it should be done. I certainly, again, I don't want there to be any question about where I am on that question. I stand in favor of pay equity. I stand in favor of increasing minimum wage.
Thank you, Ms. Casting the floor and Ms. Collins. There is a virtual round of applause that you cannot hear, but it's out there for your responses to this conversation. Thank you both for this dialogue. We're going to be pivoting now to the questions for the judicial candidates, Attorney Brad Myers and Attorney Jen Araka. We want to remind our audience that you have an opportunity to have one of your own questions answered by placing it in the chat box. So we're going to start with Attorney Myers, and remember, each candidate you'll have about 2 minutes to respond. So let's see, the first question is, many professionals take on an obligation to continue their education even as they practice in their own field, including lawyers. As you all seek to become judges, how have you demonstrated a commitment to your continuous learning?
Well, throughout my career, I have attended both mandatory continuing legal education classes as well as voluntary ones. I have, as a delegate of my firm to an international group called Interlaw, I have traveled throughout the world learning about other legal systems, the way that courts are managed in other countries, and that sort of thing. And I think that I will continue to do that as a judge. I'll continue to go to legal seminars that are hosted by the Bar Association as well as those by the judiciary.
Thank you very much. Jen Raka, same question. Many professionals take on an obligation to continue their education, even as they practice in their own field. And that includes lawyers. As you seek to become a judge, how have you demonstrated a commitment to your continuous learning?
So since becoming an attorney, we're mandated to continue with education and receive certain hours throughout the years. However, I didn't feel like that was enough, and I don't like to sit idly by. I taught at a paralegal school, and you would not imagine how much you can learn from students that are learning and applying the law, trying to learn the law. And I felt like that was a learning experience in and of itself, where not only was I teaching them, but they were also teaching me. As I referenced earlier, I think that it's vitally important that we attempt to learn, however challenging it may be, an additional language. We have a lot of Spanish-speaking citizens in our state and throughout our country, and I think it's important to try to communicate with one another. Another piece is whenever I finish, I'm sorry, my camera's blinking out, so I don't know if you guys can hear me or not. I apologize.
We can still hear you, so you're fine.
Okay, so sorry, it threw me
No
off
worries.
for a bit, but I obtained my license to sell insurance. I do continuing education with that, and by doing that, I've learned so much about the Affordable Care Act, about COVID mandates, how they're implemented through businesses and municipalities throughout the state of Louisiana and the nation. I feel it's very important to stay sharp and stay updated with all the laws and all the ever-changing issues that our community sees.
Thank you. I'm going to stick with you, Jen, for this next question. Bail and fines and fees are often directed at removing resources, or can be in place, actually removing resources from low-income families. Can you talk to us a little bit about what, if anything, do you believe can or should be done to bring more transparency on the issue of bail, fines, and fees?
So as a public defender, I witnessed that. And there would be clients that we represented that would stay in jail because they didn't have the means to be able to get out of jail. And where I found it the most alarming would be on misdemeanor nonviolent offenses. And people would stay and they would end up serving their time prior to having a trial. So I think there can be reform there. I think that any judge that sits on the bench should be able to read a rap sheet, understand what criminal history looks like, and determine whether or not this person is a threat to society to determine the legal bail and fee system. It's very important to have that type of experience going in. So whenever you can look at it, you can see, hey, is this a repeat offender, or is this someone who has made a mistake? Is this somebody who's going to go out and violate or hurt someone again? Those are all questions that should be asked, and that can be easily identified usually by just looking at a rap sheet and figuring out whether or not someone is prone to violent activity. I think it's very important to be able to have that experience and that knowledge. And I think that if we all apply it accurately, we can actually reform the legal bail system by just applying what we know. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Meyer, same question. Bail and fines and fees are often in place in removing resources from low-income families. What, if anything, do you think should be done as it involves bringing more transparency on the issues of money, bail, and fines and fees?
Of course, judges apply the law. They don't make the law or reform the system, but there are things that judges can do in order to make sure that the system operates properly and fairly for everyone. First, I think judges need to work hard. We have lost over 125 years of judicial experience in the last 2 years, And I think we need someone who has the experience to step in from day one in order to do the job that these judges that we've lost have done. I think the other thing is that the judges, when they set bails and consider someone for bail, need to treat each person individually and not as a statistic. They need to spend the time to learn about the person's background, what factors got that person in the position that he was in at the time of the arrest, and make decisions based upon a person's not only their financial ability, but whether or not they are a risk to the community. You have to remember that bail is mainly designed to make sure that someone shows up in court, and for minor offenses, it is incomprehensible to me that anybody who is arrested for a misdemeanor spends time in jail because they are unable to afford a bond that may be set too high. There are other ways to make sure that someone appears in court and to protect the public other than a high bail that someone can't afford or may cause them to lose their job because the bail is too high.
Thank you, Mr. Myers. And we're going to stick with you for this next question. Domestic violence is at crisis levels in East Baton Rouge Parish, as well as the state. Immigrant rights organizations have pointed out that the 287G agreement has a chilling effect on the immigrant population seeking help from the courts on domestic violence issues. How would you address this issue if you were elected to be judge?
Well, I think the main thing is that there, as I mentioned, there are judges do not make the law. We simply enforce it and apply the law as it's written. I think one of the things that people need to understand is that domestic violence cases are those where there should not be any room for anything but the harshest and most serious penalties and be dealt with in that manner.
Thank you. Jen Araka, coming to you. And before I pivot to you, I just want to remind our audience that the 287G section is essentially a program allowing state and local agencies to act as immigration enforcement agents. And I just sort of shared that earlier. But same question for you, Jen. Domestic violence is at a crisis level in East Baton Rouge Parish, as well as the states. Immigrant rights organizations have pointed out that the 287G agreement has a chilling effect on the immigrant population seeking help from the courts on domestic violence issues. If you were elected to be the judge, how would you address this issue?
So let me start by saying domestic violence makes up, and I saw this statistic recently, for over 20% of our major homicides and crisis that we see currently. And it's very cyclic, and it starts usually with just a minor offense, and then it gets worse throughout time. As a city prosecutor and on the domestic violence team with some of the other city court judges, we had programs that were initiated to help folks with that program and with education and with rehabilitation and a lot of counseling. However, on the immigrant population, can you repeat exactly what you said there? Because my camera keeps cutting out, and I'm so sorry about that.
Oh, no worries. So the immigrant rights organizations have pointed out that the 287G agreement has a chilling effect on the immigrant population seeking help from the courts, specifically on domestic violence issues. And so how would you address this issue if you were elected to be the judge?
So immigrants should be treated fairly. However, I think where that comes in line is whenever you have people from ICE that will place holds on immigrants or folks that are not considered citizens. And what happens is you'll see those people they'll either force a plea and get deported, or essentially they'll stay in jail the extended period of time that they're there, whether they were innocent or guilty of the crime. I do believe that everybody is innocent until proven guilty. So I do not think that that is being fairly applied. However, I also have not seen that in the history of my career be an overwhelming issue. There have been some cases, and obviously those were terrible. But I don't think that it's a huge issue in city court currently or in the 19th JDC. However, if it does become an issue, I think it has to be addressed immediately.
Thank you, Ms. Rocker. We'll stay with you for this next question. Marijuana or cannabis decriminalization is becoming a reality in Louisiana. How do you think the courts need to address this particular issue?
Well, we have to apply the law as it's written. However, we're in a very strange situation here where drug crimes are higher than they've ever been. We have an opioid epidemic. We have a heroin epidemic. And over the past couple of years, heroin has become increasingly popular, for lack of a better word, here in our city. The issue that I have with some of that is that what we're seeing is some people will argue that marijuana is a gateway drug. And while that may not necessarily be true, in our state, in the state of Louisiana, it's not being federally regulated. So it's not being regulated at all, much like you would see in Colorado or California, where you can walk into a dispensary, you know what you're getting, you know that it is not tainted with any other drug, fentanyl or anything like that. Here in the state and the city, we have to be careful with how we're applying that law until other laws are changed or until there's some sort of reform. I do not believe that marijuana is an offense that people should stay in jail for. I believe that the city courts have instituted summons where people are released, and it's not the same as some of the other drugs, obviously, but that's my perspective on it.
Thank you, Mr. Meyer. Same question to you. Marijuana or cannabis decriminalization is becoming a reality in Louisiana. How do you think the courts need to address this particular issue?
As I mentioned earlier, judges apply the law as written and don't necessarily make it. But I think that your question goes back to one you asked one of the candidates in the other races about criminal justice reform. And I think what judges have to do is that they have to treat everybody fairly and equally. They need to treat people. People need to take responsibility. If they violate the law, they need to take responsibility for that. But they also should have an opportunity to redeem themselves and be rehabilitated. And for minor offenses like possession of marijuana, I think that and many offenses that are related to someone's mental health issues or drug addictions need to be dealt with differently than a career criminal who goes out and murders someone. I mean, we need to look at the individual. We need to delve into the person's background and try to determine how that person went off the straight and narrow path, so to speak, and fashion sentences and resolve cases in a manner that helps them get back to being a productive member of society.
Thank you. We are now going to pivot to some questions from our audience. We have some audience questions that have been submitted. You'll see those questions pop up on your screen, and Mr. Myers will stick with you to answer this first question. And the first question is, as a judge, and this question is from Dana Williams Harris, as a judge, what programs would you effectively design in order to help first-time offenders so that it will lead them to better decisions? Mr. Myers?
Well, as a judge, we wouldn't be designing the programs. We would be implementing programs that are already in effect, or possibly assisting to let those agencies that are responsible for that let them know the types of programs that can be used to help people. As I mentioned just a minute ago, we need as judges to look into the background of each person who appears before the judge and make a determination as to why that person has appeared in court, has violated the criminal laws, and make a determination as to what program, whether it be alcohol and drug treatment program, a mental health program. I know that there are classes that are put on to help people make better decisions, anger management classes and that sort of thing. And the ultimate goal is to make sure that people don't reappear in court as subsequent offenders, and that they are able with the assistance of the probation office and the court, they're able to return to society as productive members of society through either going back to school and getting an education or being mentored by a community group or a faith group.
Thank you, Mr. Myers. Ms. Araka, same question. As a judge, what programs would you effectively design in order to help first-time offenders so that it will lead to them making better decisions?
Thank you so much for that question. Actually, there are programs already in place. There's a drug court program and there's a domestic abuse violence program like I referenced earlier, but those are rarely used for first offenders with the exception of the domestic abuse violence program. The district attorney's office currently has a pretrial intervention program. And what that allows for is for an offender to go into the program, and then once the completion of those classes are done, they are allowed to not plead guilty to that particular crime. Now, the issue with that program, and I think going forward, is absolutely making sure that it's affordable to everyone. And I'm sure that there are systems in place to make sure. Now, it is a strenuous program that allows for classes. It allows for victim impact panels, and it also requires drug testing. So I do believe that that program is excellent for first-time offenders, and they also have programs sometimes for felony offenders. With all that being said, just because you're a first-time offender doesn't mean that you have to have a misdemeanor or a felony on your record for the rest of your life. There are deferred adjudication articles, like Article 894 and 893 that are allowed for after someone successfully completes their probation, they can have those crimes expunged from their records. And I know that the public is not always aware of that, and sometimes public defenders don't make their clients aware of that. But sentencing under those articles definitely provide a better future for anyone that is a first-time offender and wants to get their life together.
Thank you, Ms. Araka. I'm going to check to see if we have one more audience question that might have been, yeah, here we go. So this question is from Fletcher R. Bell, and Ms. Araka will start with you. Where do you stand on alternative sentences in lieu of incarceration for nonviolent offenses?
So I think it's important to know what the crime looks like. Now, let me give you an example. So let's say, for example, there is an armed robbery, a possession of cocaine, and a flight from a police officer. And those are the three charges that someone has received. And the prosecutor or the district attorney, rather, in the case, ADA says, you know what, I'm going to let that person plead guilty to possession of cocaine, and I'll dismiss the rest of the charges. Whenever there's a violent offense wrapped into there, but the plea is possession of cocaine. So I think a judge has to take into account all the facts and all the scenarios. And from handling thousands of cases in city court, I can personally attest that no two cases are alike. So you have to use your experience to determine whether or not alternative sentences are available. And I can tell you there are alternative sentences available. For most cases, most felony cases, you don't have to strictly do a flat time where a person spends all 7 years in jail. You can do a split sentence, because we must remember the aims of the criminal justice system are rehabilitation, reduced recidivism, and retribution to whoever has been offended in this case. So I think it's very important. I do believe that there are alternative sentences in lieu of incarceration. I think that those come with heavier circumstances should someone violate while they're out and about. There's a larger responsibility on the person that's getting the alternative sentence to do his or her part to make sure that they're accomplishing the goals of that alternative sentence.
Thank you, Ms. Araka. Mr. Meyer, same question. Where do you stand on alternative sentences in lieu of incarceration for nonviolent offenses?
As I've said earlier, and I don't want to be repetitive, a judge needs to use all of the tools available to him in order to sentence someone on an individual basis. I can't answer that question in a vacuum without knowing the facts and circumstances of every offense. So I think that alternative sentences in the appropriate circumstances should be used rather than putting a nonviolent offender in jail But again, it depends on the circumstances and who the offender is, what his back or her background is, and that sort of thing.
Thank you, Mr. Myers, and thank you, Ms. Araka. There is this virtual round of applause that you cannot hear that's happening right now for your participation in this conversation. We appreciate both of you taking the time to have this dialogue. We are now going to begin our questions for the third group of people on the call, and these are Metro Council District 5 candidates. Our first set of questions will only require yes or no answers, and we're going to begin with Mr. Bengal. The parish is directly responsible for the health care in the jail. The jail has had over 56 deaths since 2012. The Metro Council approved a new medical provider called Turnkey in December of 2021, but it has yet to appropriate funding for a full-time health monitor. Do you believe the parish should have a full-time jail health monitor? And do you believe that the Metro Council should require the jail's medical provider to provide timely, objective reports to the Metro Council and the public? Mr. Bengal.
Yes, I do.
Mr. Hurst, same question.
Yes, I do.
Mr. Lannis.
Yes, I do, and I think that the sheriff should be brought to the table in those conversations.
Thank you. This next question will start with Mr. Hurst. Do you support the parish providing full parity funding for the public defender's office? And when we talk about parity, I believe we're referencing parity between the district attorney's office and the public defender's office.
Absolutely. That's why we're in mass incarceration right now. So I'm 100% for parity to ensure that we have equitable resources to ensure that we have a great defense and not a bunch of plea deals.
Thank you, Mr. Lannis.
I guess but the answer to that is absolutely yes. And that's because right now they are completely backlogged, and there's a huge vacuum for jobs right now with the public defender's office because they're underfunded significantly. So absolutely yes.
Thank you. And Mr. Bengal?
Yes.
Thank you. This next question, we'll start with Mr. Lannis. Have you read the current plan of government?
Yes.
Mr. Bengal?
Yes, I have.
And Mr. Hurst?
Yes, I have.
Thank you. We'll start with Mr. Bengal for this next one. Will you support a fair chance ordinance to require contractors doing business with the parish to quote unquote ban the box on job applications and give formerly incarcerated persons an opportunity to successfully re-enter our communities?
Yes, I will.
Mr. Hurst?
Yes, I will. Not only will I do that, but I've also talked to Kelvin Hill about getting employment with DPW for the same position.
Mr. Lannis?
Absolutely yes.
Thank you. Mr. Hurst, this question will start with you. East Baton Rouge Parish has over 32 separate law enforcement agencies and over 60% of its general budget dedicated to quote unquote public safety. Do you believe it is time for the Metro Council to hold hearings to develop a comprehensive public safety plan and budget?
Yes, I do. I believe it's long overdue.
Mr. Lannis?
Yes, and I think that we should also consider hiring a public safety commissioner.
Thank you. Mr. Bengal?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Now let's pivot to our comprehensive questions, and each candidate will have up to 2 minutes to respond. And just like before, towards the end, if you hear my timer start to go off, please begin to wrap up your response. Mr. Lannis, we'll start with you. What is your vision for making District 5 a safe, welcoming place for all? And please include your top 3 priorities for District 5 that you believe you have the power to impact in your first year serving on the council.
Absolutely. So I'll start off by saying one is going to be crime. I think that when you talk to, again, majority of people throughout District 5, and not just throughout District 5, throughout our entire community, crime is a major issue and it's a major topic. And I think that we get there by 5 different things. One, we have to put gunshot monitors inside of every high crime neighborhood. This ensures that we cut down on police response time. Number 2, we need to put license plate readers inside of every HOA and civic association, ensuring that whenever crime does happen, the residents inside of those areas know when and where it takes place, and also so they can get dialogue with our police and local law enforcement. Number 3, anti-violence neighborhood response teams that bring direct holistic family supports directly to the people who are victims either of crime or they have the effects or the traumatic effect that happens after crime takes place inside of those neighborhoods. And have already identified several organizations such as Against All Odds that could do that work. Number four, a school-based programming that teaches anti-violence awareness inside of our curriculum. This is a must. When a child walks out of their home, the state that those four walls cannot follow them at school. When they walk out of school, the state that the four walls at school can't follow them when they're inside of the neighborhoods with their friends and peer pressures that's in. So we need to ensure that we're putting our best foot forward inside of our schools so that we can rebuild sustainable community models. And last but certainly not least, a Jobs for Guns program. In the past, we've seen where people have tried to utilize initiatives such as if you get somebody cash for a gun, they try to give you $100. It didn't work because the incentive was not enough. But when you can change the person's livelihood, I think that completely changes everything. Can bring forth inside of their family and also the way that they take care and maintain themselves. But I would also say that another one of my top priorities would be to create cooperative associations inside of our neighborhoods where the community and the residents actually own the properties inside of our neighborhoods, such as eateries and restaurants, such as movie theaters, such as live entertainment venues inside of our communities. I think that we have the capacity, so just not.
Thank you, Mr. Lannis. Mr. Bengal, same question. What is your vision for making District 5 a safe, welcoming place for all? And please include your top 3 priorities for District 5 that you believe you have the power to impact in your first year serving on the council.
Thank you so much. I believe the issue with District 5 is that we have to tackle this issue of poverty. We can't wage war on people. We have to wage war on poverty. And the problem we have is the lack of education. Everything has to have a foundation. We can't have a stronger economy or a stronger community without addressing this educational piece. The average education level in East Baton Rouge Parish is 8th grade. When it's time to increase the budget or when it's time to cut back resources in the state, we always go to education. So until we realize education, that foundation, which leads to high incarceration, which leads to high truancy, which leads to high recidivism, then we'll understand how to tackle this issue. This is a holistic issue. One thing won't fix District 5. We talk about crime prevention. We have to talk about mental health issues. We have to understand that there's mental health issues that have not been addressed. There is lack of access to mental health facilities. You can count how many mental health facilities on one hand compared to the amount of people that lives in the community. We also have to talk about the collaborative partnerships with these stakeholders that we talk about. The people have to be connected with the church has to be connected with law enforcement has to be connected with judiciary has to be connected with our stakeholders, with our politics, with our state representatives. So until we have those conversations, there's no problem. It all connects with the failing economic system in our community. Right now, we want to turn these blighted properties into businesses. Right now, we have so many adjudicated properties right here in District 5 that people can bid on and own these homes in the efforts to put them back on commerce. So we need to attack those issues by letting the community know that they can also own some of these properties. We also need just to pour back into, again, access to food. We have a food desert here in District 5. There have not been a grocery store in over 25 years in this community. People should not have to drive 10, 20 miles outside just to get fresh produce. So right now, we have to take an inventory in our community and realize that we have to tackle poverty. And until we realize that, all these other problems will not solve itself overnight.
Thank you. Mr. Hurst, same question. East Baton Rouge Parish is over 30, What is your vision for making District 5 a safe, welcoming place for all? And please include your top 3 priorities for District 5 that you believe you have the power to impact in your first year serving on the council.
So I believe that education equals income, which equals outcome. So when the median income raises, so does crime go down. Businesses begin to invest in your community. And so for my 1, 2, and 3-part plan, it's economic development, and economic development. I'll explain why. The first thing we need to do is formulate neighborhood associations, which I've already started in Glen Oaks. I've already done it in Delmont Village. And those neighborhood associations will then take control of those areas, create crime prevention districts. Because I too agree about license plate readers. I'm not a fan of shot spotters because when crime moves, they don't. But cameras, proactive policing in the community, that money then goes to beautification dollars, but also crime prevention district dollars can be used to provide programming for kids when they're out of school, which is when the high crime rates come up. Reformation of neighborhoods through associations and crime prevention districts. That's number one, because you have to have a funding source for those cameras, license plate readers, and everything else. They don't just come out of osmosis, and the city won't dedicate all those resources to a specific community. Number two is to reinvigorate our business corridors. So when the insides of the neighborhoods look great, the outsides of the neighborhood look great, it deters crime. Okay. And number three is I have an economic development plan that will take an individual from welfare/poverty to disposable income within 2 to 4 years that finishes with home ownership in the 5th year. So if you work on the individual, which are the parents, I believe kids are born the same. There's some challenges that's going on in our neighborhoods, in our communities, some part with parenting. And so getting them re-educated, making them employable, increasing the economic outcome of that community, which raised the median income, in itself solves poverty, because crime is a result of poverty. Crime is not a result of other things. It's a survivalist tactic. And so when economic development happens, blight gets removed, people take advantage and care of their property, and crime reduces.
Thank you, Mr. Bengal. We'll start this next question with you. Redistricting is currently happening in the Metro Council. Please share your thoughts on how you envision both the Parish and District 5 specifically being impacted by a redrawing of the maps for the Metro Council as well as school board.
That question is simple. The seats are created based on the population of the voters. And when you have a voter population that's increasingly specifically African Americans, then that means that we deserve another representation seat, regardless of what type of race it may be. If it was whites, that the census says that, hey, there's more people in this area, then hey, that would dictate that they deserve another representation. But right now, you're talking about Baton Rouge specifically, 52% African American. The Parish, you're talking about 49% African American. Yes, there needs to have another minority seat on the Metro Council. That's a simple fix. That's the reason why we have the census to be able to instruct us on that. I also believe that we have to take accountability as Metro Council has to take accountability of recognizing that. If not, then of course there's other alternate ways to getting that done. That's through the court legal system. But I do believe that there is enough equity right now to support another minority seat. I do believe that they should do their priorities by making sure that the census is honored.
Thank you. Mr. Hurst, same question. Redistricting is currently happening in the Metro Council. Please share your thoughts on how you envision both the Parish and District 5 specifically being impacted by a redrawing of the maps for the Metro Council as well as school board.
Well, I would say the biggest issue is with the Parish, because right now the Parish is 46% African American, 42% white. And when you look at the demographer that's being used for the Parish, which is the same one that's being used for the school board, I challenge my school board members to pull up some of the same issues that we brought about with the council. Okay, they are grouping minorities other than Black in the same column as the predominantly whites to turn that 42% into a majority, which is incorrect. And so if you either spread those minorities out, it automatically creates a 6th seat for the council, or if you group the majority of the minorities together, which means Black and other, it creates a 7th minority seat on the council. So the numbers are being skewed by the demographer. We are challenging those numbers, and we've asked them to present those numbers in a different way to ensure that we have equity on both sides of Florida Boulevard and the northern part of the parish.
Thank you, Mr. Atlanta. Same question. Redistricting is currently happening in the Metro Council. Please share your thoughts on how you envision both the Parish and District 5 specifically being impacted by a redrawing of the maps for the Metro Council as well as school board.
Yes, really good question. We're going through the same situation right now. Yes, and I share the same sentiments around the demographer in the way that not just about the grouping, it's the way that the information is being rolled out. There's not enough community meetings that are taking place, which is why inside of my school board district, I'm actually hosting my very own town hall meeting. We're going to dialogue with the community, and whatever the community says is the best outlook on the situation. That's what I'm going to go with. But I want to be very clear about something. The amount of seats that we get is going to be very small when you think about the amount of power we can have by or having an extra additional. What problem is happening right now is that we're creating minority leaning seats, but we're not using a age appropriate voter base in order to build the foundation for those minority seats. So you may have a situation where you have a minority seat, but a white counterpart can still win that seat. So we have to be very vigilant. We have to look at these maps very closely. We have to make sure that we are including all of our community stakeholders inside of these meetings and these conversations. Our best being placed.
Thank you very much. We are now going to pivot to two audience questions that we have received during this conversation. The first question, which will be answered by, we'll start with Mr. Hurst. To the District 5 candidates, this question is from Boo Milton. Why did you choose to run for the seat? Specifically, why Metro Council?
Well, I will tell you, I didn't choose to run for the seat. I believe the seat chose me. I've been servicing the community for a number of years. I've been in the parish, out of the parish. God landed me directly in District 5, wouldn't allow me to go to sleep until I committed to run in 2020. He told me I was going to run, but that I wasn't going to win. But I followed God's will for my life at that time. 2 years later, I sit here as the Metro Councilman for District 5. And so again, it has to be something that you're called to do, not something that you want to do, something that's spirit-led. And for that reason, when your passion meets your purpose, that means it's God ordained. And so you've seen the work that I've done. Because it is my passion, I'm relentless and I won't stop until I make District 5 a better place to live and work.
Thank you. Mr. Landis, why did you choose to run for the seat? Specifically, why Metro Council?
Yes, sir. So when I think about District 5 Metro Council, I think about a community that has been long forgotten about. It has the largest population of Black voters. And when I think about all of the students that I have lost over the course of the last years, I am an educator by trade. That's what makes me think about what they need to see. I am the youngest person inside of the race, so I do believe that when young people see other young people invigorated, other young people that are trying to lead the charge, that are trying to help our community, I think that says a lot. I am the community-based guy. I lived in District 5 my entire life. I attended Forest Heights Elementary School, Glen Oak Middle School, as well as Glen Oaks High School, where I finished. And I also just someone that's giving back. And I learned under the people who came before me. I remember sitting inside of Charles Kelly's living room, him telling them what it takes to be a great leader. I remember standing outside of Glen Oaks Middle School after the Zion City redevelopment meetings at night and talking to Mr. Elwitz about what it takes to be a great leader. So I didn't just roll into this district or someone who just woke up overnight and said that I wanted to try to do this. I have been involved in this district and in our community for the last 10 years alone. Ever since I come out of college, I've been doing the work. And I think anybody that understands me and understand how serious I am about our community, I'm there through and through. Same thing when we almost lost a high school, one of the most prominent high schools in the district. We fought and we won, and we got a $30 million investment brought right back into the Glen Oaks community. And I want to make sure that we do that all across the board. I am the only person in this race right now that has run for this seat that has not lost. I am the only person in this race right now that has an actual elected official, and I won by 65% of the vote because I believe people believe in my vision. They believe in my leadership to move so to be their voice at all times.
Thank you, Mr. Landis. And Mr. Bengal, same question. Why did you choose to run for the seat? Specifically, why Metro Council?
Well, I chose to run for the seat because I understand how it is to live through tough times. I grew up right here on Glen Oaks Drive, single parent mother walking from Glen Oaks Drive to Kmart. So I understand what poverty looks like. I decided to run because I lived in poverty. I decided to run because I understand education is the way I got out of poverty. I decided to run just because I wanted Black students and people in my community to realize that you can do more if you just apply yourself. I wanted them to see an example of what the norm can be instead of the exception. Many people say I'm the exception because I was able to go to college. My mom was still a single parent mother. She just instilled in me discipline principles. Education was still the foundation of my house. Although I may have been poor, my mom still had a system in place, making sure my homework was done, making sure that I said yes, ma'am, and no, ma'am, make sure I went to church every Sunday. She instilled in me those basic principles. And so when I decided to run, I want to make sure that people in this community, just because you live through hard times, live through tough times, doesn't mean that has to be your entire life. You know, you can go back and you can share the information you've learned and help somebody else along the way. This seat was never about me. It's all about people that I'm on the shoulders of, who raised me up, my aunties, my mom, my church members. And so when I see students, like for example, Virginia College closes doors, I organized a graduation for 300 students. It wasn't because of me, it was because I wanted those students also to be an example to their children, so their children can see what it is to be successful. So when people ask why I run because I want to make a difference. I run because I know the problems of this community. I live here. I've lived through those tough times. I have the educational requirements. I'm also a DSCC representative who was elected by the people of East Baton Rouge Parish. I'm also the vice chairman of the Louisiana Democratic Party. I've also been on the Mayor Broom's Educational Transition Committee. I've also been in a lot of positions, the president of the Tri-Advocacy Board at Southern University Law Center. I've held many leadership positions, but when it comes down to why I'm running, it's because I'm from here. And I want to make a difference so that my children can grow up in a community where it's safe, where they can be able to be proud of, and they can be able to turn back and help the next person who's behind it.
Thank you, Mr. Bengal. We have one last audience question, and this question is from Tanisha Craig Stewart. To the District 5 candidates, how do you plan to address the issues surrounding mental health involving our young Black men and women ages 18 to 25, with suicide rates at a high within our Black and brown communities? And Mr. Hurst will start with you.
So there is a medical clinic inside the Charles R. Kelly Center. I am using that as a tool and a pilot to mitigate crime from being in the community as a youth outreach center, which I've gotten funding from the Mayor Committee for after hours to keep those open, and community public-private partners to provide those resources. But one of the biggest things is creating a mental health facility instead of a doctor's office that focuses on youth up to the age of 25. And we have 2 partners right now that we're working with to help to expand those services. In addition, the bridge agency that opened up, it's busting at the seams. I literally was on Jewel Road going to meet with the North Forest Heights community about a week and a half ago, and I had to pull my truck over in front of a young lady on Jewel Road. She was sitting Indian style in the middle of the road because she didn't want to live anymore. I came out there, I saw the sheriff's office. There needs to be some additional training there as well, how to deal with that. Because when sheriff officers come on scenes, they have a couple hour training one time a year, and our law officers, our community focus on mental health, it has to grow. From the community center standpoint, it will be an example of what we can replicate, not just in 70805 where the community center is, but partnering with faith-based communities to have additional community centers there and replicate what we have at the Charles R. Kelly Center to ensure that the mental health resources are everywhere. I met with the pastors and I told them that there are schools, there are neighborhoods, there's only one Charles R. Kelly Center, but there's a church on every corner around those. And your centers need to be the resources to ensure that everyone has an outlet to go to, not just for crime prevention, but for also mental health. So it's by creating those partnerships in the community to help solve those crimes with the professionals to be able to do it.
Thank you very much. Next, Mr. Lennis, same question on your screen.
Yes, sir. And hearing everything that we're talking about right now, I think that mental health has to start inside of it has to start inside of home. I think that we cannot offer to people that they have to always come to us. We have to be willing to go to them. And I think that we have to start knocking on doors inside of our community and finding out who needs direct services and help. Like, yes, I think that has been a huge problem in terms of crime. It has been a huge deterrent in terms of educational success rates inside of our schools. So I do think that we have to start there. Some people will say and argue that, well, we have some direct programming inside of schools such as I Care, but I Care it focuses more on drug prevention, not on so much on mental health. So I think that we have to get more therapists, specific professionals inside of those neighborhoods and also inside of our schools, because everyone is not a therapist. For me to go out and state that I can help somebody on a corner that needs help, that's not my job, and I don't have the specifics nor the licensure to go out and give them the most effective care that they need. So I think it also starts there is that we have to identify who are the people who can build into those social and emotional learning professionals inside of our schools, but also who can give direct trauma-induced and trauma-enforced information to those people that need it most out of our community.
Thank you very much. Mr. Bengal, same question on your screen.
I think first we need to educate our community on mental health. What I mean by that, every person suffers with a mental health condition. Many people just know how to cope with their mental health issues. And we first need to get rid of the stigma of going to mental health facilities, specifically in the Black community. That's number one, getting a proper education on that. Number two, we need to have more access to mental health facilities. We simply do not have the capacity to handle the demand of mental health issues within our community. So we first need to address that. Again, crime runs hand in hand with mental health issues in our community. And until we be able to develop ways to cope with these issues, provide substance abuse clinics, mental health facilities accessible to some of these individuals. Many of these people don't have transportation. How are they able to get to some of these facilities if we haven't provided them ways to get the services that they need? Also, we need to have understanding with our children to be able to talk to their parents more openly about their problems. Many of the suicide issues that have happened, many of the parents have said, I didn't know my child was going through many of the issues that they've been going through. So having a dialogue with your children, letting them be open and expressing of their issue in a non-judgmental way basically can alleviate or decrease some of these issues, having an open dialogue about these conversations. Let's just be real with each other. We know there's mental health problems. We have to have real tough conversations about mental health and let individuals know this is how you cope with it. Taking medication is not a problem. People take medication for all types of things. Professionals take medication. People that you don't even know take medication. So the stigma that you take medication, that you're crazy, no, it's a way of helping you. So again, getting that information and helping the communities will first start the process of getting more services to those communities that need it the most.
Mr. Bengal, Mr. Lannis, and Mr. Hurst, there is a virtual round of applause happening right now. Thanking you all for your cooperation and participation in this dialogue. We're now going to pivot and bring all of the candidates back one by one to give a 1-minute closing statement. And I want to remind everybody that it's 1 minute, and I want to thank everybody for your patience. I know we've gone a little bit over time. I'm going to read out the order so people kind of know where they are in the lineup, but I'll also call on you. So we're going to first hear from Mr. Lannis, then Mr. Hurst, then Mr. Bengal, Ms. Araka, Mr. Myers, Ms. Councilmember, and Ms. Collins to round us out. So Mr. Lannis, we'll start with you. 1 minute closing statement.
Sir. But first and foremost, I want to thank everybody out there for listening to us, take the time out to understand what the issues are and what we are presenting to you as candidates. What I offer is myself. I am someone that works tirelessly and relentlessly to ensure that we move the needle across our community as a whole. For the last 3 years, I have started on the largest employer in the city of Baton Rouge, the Baton Rouge Parish school system. And in that time, we've been able to do some incredible things. In fact, District 2 is now the most informative district that we have seen thus far. In the last 3 years, I have sat at the table and I've been able to move the needle on over $150 million in financial commitment to our district. And that's just the rub of the surface. When it came down to standing up for our community and to ensure that we have equity inside of our school, racist oppressive symbols, wrote and authored the resolution to change the name of Robert E. Lee High School to Liberty High School to ensure that our students have a safe place where they can go, but they don't have to feel shamed or embarrassed. When it came down in Illinois High School, we brought back a $30 million investment, which has propped it up the entire district in that area. So I ask for your prayers and your votes. My name is Darius Lannis. I'm on the 11 on the ballot. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lannis. Mr. Hurst, 1 minute closing statement.
Hey, my service didn't start when I ran for office. I've been serving the community and working with 1,500 up to 4,000 kids a year for the past 7 years. I continue to service as a councilman in District 5. We've put a blight removal program in place. We put a neighborhood revitalization program in place. We have created micro business districts to improve the corridors of where you live, work, and play. We've created public-private partnerships to ensure that our youth in our community have the ability to have a safe haven after school. We just submitted our application Friday to make the Charles R. Kelly Center a feeding site to ensure that those kids have afternoon snacks so that when they become part of our program, that they are able to strive, move forward, and learn so that we can mitigate that crime until the economic growth happens, which is about a 10 to 15-year process. I'm not a person to talk, I'm a person of action, and I'm a person of service. I'm here to represent the people of District 5, their wishes in District 5, to leverage my business and my community and my faith to make an impact. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Mr. Bengal.
Thank you so much for hosting this forum. Listen, members of District 5, listen, I'm here because I want you guys to have representation for your community. Your voice will always be my vote. I want you guys to hold me accountable. I want you to hold me accountable for the things that I do, the things that I say. I'm committed to making sure that we have more access to mental health facilities. I'm committed to making sure that we have more access to healthier food options in our community. I'm committed to making sure that we turn some of these blighted properties into businesses so it's flourishing and thriving. These are the things that we should not be begging. I want to make sure that we have equity in our communities. I want to make sure that I'm vigilant in making sure all these things happen. I ask that you support me. I ask that you pray that I get through this particular race so that I can be a public servant, because we work for you guys and not that you work for us. And so I want to make sure that I'm accessible to you guys at all times. I just want to make sure that what I say is what I'm going to do. And again, thank you so much for allowing me to be a candidate, and I hope to see you on the campaign trail. And then God bless you all. Have a good night.
Thank you so much. Those were the three candidates running for District 5 Metro Council seat. Next up for beginning the closing statements, we have Jen Araka.
Hi, thank you all so much for being here tonight and listening to our questions and listening to our answers and having great questions. Based upon our answers tonight, I think it's vitally important that you have a candidate that knows what rehabilitative programs are available for as conditions of probation, as bond, or for deferred adjudication. Experience matters, but relevant experience is absolutely vital in this election. I'm asking each of you to ask your neighbors, talk to your friends, and make sure that they ask their candidate for judge what their experience is in the criminal courts of the 19th JDC. There's no substitute for it. Thank you all very much again.
Thank you, Ms. Araka. And Mr. Myers, 1 minute. Mr. Myers, you're on mute, just so you know.
Sorry about that. I've worked my entire career to be in a position to serve as a judge of the 19th Judicial District Court. In my over 30 years of experience, I've tried every type of case that a district court judge, both criminal and civil, might see. If I'm elected, I can promise you 4 things. I'll work hard. I'll apply the law as written. I will treat everyone fairly, equitably, and equally, regardless of their financial status, their race, color, national origin, sex, or religion. And finally, I will treat everyone who comes before me with the respect and dignity that they deserve, so that regardless of the outcome of the case, they will leave the courtroom knowing that they've got a fair shake and that they will have respect for the judicial system. Regardless of who you vote for in any of these elections, in light of what's going on in the world today and the attacks on democracy, I encourage you to go out to vote in order to help preserve our democracy and freedom.
Thank you, Mr. Myers. And as a reminder, Mr. Myers and Ms. Araka are running for the 19th JDC position. Next, for the 1 minute closing statement, we will start with Ms. Caston the floor.
Thank you. And I want to thank everyone for showing up tonight. An informed electorate is there to hold elected officials accountable. So I really appreciate you doing that. As I canvass District 101, I'm often asked, why am I doing this? And the simple answer is, I'm running to serve you. I'm inspired by you, District 101. We all deserve to have a seat at the table. I promise to be your voice. It took a village to get me here, and I am definitely bringing that village to the Capitol with me. And you are that village, District 101. I possess the intelligence, honesty, humility, and ability to effectively communicate on behalf of the voters of District 101. I will represent District 101 well, and I know that I will thrive as a legislator. The voters of District 101 can rest easy knowing that with my background, I will not be a spectator to the legislative process. I'm ready to lead on day one for District 101. Vanessa Caston LaFleur, the clear choice, number 5 on your ballot, number 1 in your heart.
Thank you very much. And Ms. Collins, please round us out, a 1-minute closing statement.
Thank you. As a current elected official and community advocate on progressive local, state, and national matters, I am also ready to hit the ground running on day one. As an elected official, I have a proven track record of working across the aisle to get tangible results, whether it's pushing for staff and educators to get restorative training on restorative practices so that they know how to manage classrooms and students once the state removed statutes on zero tolerance, whether it is the millions upon millions of dollars that I have obtained for the schools in District 101 in programming and in infrastructure repairs. I have the experience, I have the proven track record of getting things done. And long before I got on the school board, I was born a servant and I was raised a servant. And so I have a servant's spirit. And I look forward to serving the constituents of District 101. Election date is March 26th, and I am ballot number 3.
Thank you, Ms. Collins and Ms. Caston LaFleur. As a reminder, those 2 individuals are running for state representative. To all the candidates that joined us this evening, thank you very much for throwing your name in the hat and running for a position. You know, running a campaign, running for a particular seat, that is somewhat of a personal sacrifice. So we thank all of you for running for the respective seats that you put your name in the hat for. To the audience members who were able to join us this evening, thank you for your patience, thank you for your attention, and thank you for your involvement. Having an informed electorate is one of the most valuable things we can do, and understanding where the different candidates lie in certain positions and certain issues helps us have an informed casting of our vote. So really heard from each of the candidates answers. There are many important issues that are here to be worked on that we can help get progress for through this particular election. And I thank everybody for joining us. Thank you for the sponsoring organizations. Thank you for the candidates, and everyone, good night.